In today's episode, we're swapping in a 1.6 16 valve Suzuki motor into my Suzuki Samurai. All right, guys, welcome back to Fabbin Adventures. It's motor swap time. I've been waiting for a while, a few months for this to happen now. I got the 16V here, got all the parts here ready, got the 1.3 out of the Samurai, and we're just gonna swap some parts and stab it in there. It's gonna be awesome. If you guys are new here, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, hit the bell to be notified. I'm going to be making a few episodes of this whole series and showing you the install and a shakedown run afterwards and my thoughts on the power compared to the 1.3 with the turbo. It was fairly wore out. And if you're already a subscriber, hang on to your seat. Here we go. I got all my parts organized. I got my clutch assembly off of my 1.3. I've got the Petroworks adapter. I've got the harness, ECM, the harness and everything is all made up. A good buddy of mine made that up. The speedometer's got the VSS added to it. I got the 318 Dodge motor mounts. Got to do a little bit of fabbing here to make this work. The old air box. The motor's hanging on the hoist. The 1.3 turbo is out of there. And I'm really looking forward to this. I think it's going to make a huge difference. It has to. The way John's little Samurai pulled my Trooper out of the muskeg swamp, it's going to be awesome. It has no choice but to be awesome. So hang in there and watch and see how we're going to make this happen. I'm hoping it's going to be reasonably simple. I've never done a swap like this before. So we got to mount the ECM under the glove box, run the wiring, get all that ready, swap some parts over on the 1.6, take the 1.6 alternator off, put this one on, put the clutch on, put the motor mounts on, all that stuff, get ready for it to drop in. And then put her in, hook up the exhaust, hook up all the wiring, put the radiator back in it and put some coolant in it and fire it up. Take her for a test drive. So stick around, let's have at her. Yeah, there we go. And there's your gauge panel. And once you get the gauge panel out, apparently he's got to modify, he's got to put a VSS in here and modify this somehow, I don't know. But we'll see that when we get there. So there she is, there's the first step to the 16V transplant.
So right there is where the magnet is on that little wheel that it spins with your...
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
There's 4
magnets on there.
Yeah, 90 degrees apart. The one side was just way too far, so I just had to
Oh yeah.
tweak it back.
So what does that thing do again? That VSS?
Just sends a ground pulse to your ECM to tell your ECM how fast you're going.
Okay guys, day 2 of the 1.6 swap. So what I used is these Dodge motor mounts and then the factory plate that mounts to your frame. I made it about an 1/8 inch shorter, and then on the other side I made it just so this 1/2 inch bolt clears the frame, and I had to offset it 3/4 of an inch to get the motor in there straight in the frame. And there it goes. I mean, I think I'm ready to drop it in. First I'm going to change the timing belt just for good measure, and then we're going to drop her in, mount it up, see how everything works, and then run the wires, fit the exhaust, and fire it up, see how she goes. The Petroworks mount, you can see The adapter plate that I use is from Petroworks, and that was perfect. Not a misaligned bolt hole or nothing. It fit absolutely perfect. So I definitely recommend them so far. First time using the Petroworks mount. I've heard good things about it, and it seems pretty good. All right, guys, we got the 16V is in and mounted and bolted down solid. Everything seems to fit decent. Power steering unit is even still out of the way. It fits. The oil filter is fairly close. It's about 3/4 of an inch away from the bottom of the power steering unit. I think that should be enough for that oil filter to spin out. So now I'm going to be basically drilling a hole in the firewall and installing a big grommet. I'm going to mount the ECM underneath the glove box and run the wires and everything up through, clip them all in, get my coolant lines hooked up, get the rad in and battery and all that stuff back on, and we should be ready to fire up. This is getting good. So here's the ECM and the wiring harness that John modified for me. This is all the wiring harness and everything here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drill right here. It's where my, it's where I used to have my diff breathers, was hooked right there. Move them. I'm gonna drill through here with an 1.5" hole saw and install the grommet. And that's where all my wiring is gonna come out for the entire engine harness. So we put in a pretty darn good day today. We got all this stuff done. Everything's mounted. Everything looks good. Nothing's rubbing. One of the things you have to do is the original heater hoses don't reach to the back of the 16V. So I just got some blue 1/2" heater hose, hooked it to the back here where it goes into the back of the head, and then it just comes up and it loops around and goes into the heater control here. I got one more hose here I'm gonna have to extend to hook in down under here. Other than that, that's really the only adapting I had to do, modifying any little bit of things. Hook my fuel line up, my return fuel line. You got to use a quite a bit bigger return fuel line. Your factory return line on the Samurai is not big enough, can't feed the fuel back, and apparently you have trouble with that. So I've already had the big 3/8 line from the turbo. So that's my return line, and I got the braided hose here, fuel line from the turbo. So that's already there. We just have to hook those two up and she's good to go. And I can get a lot of this other mess out of here. All these lines from the turbo and stuff like that. So let's continue this project tomorrow. And hopefully we'll have her up and running tomorrow afternoon sometime. And then we can take her for a shakedown run. And a shakedown run will be another video. I'll show you guys, talk about it, say all my thoughts and whatnot. See you tomorrow. Hey, welcome back, guys. So this morning what the plan is to take the old turbo down pipe that I had made kind of my own collector. If you'd watched the turbo video, you would see how I made this little collector. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut the collector off, use the exhaust pipe here that bolts up to the exhaust on the Zook already, and then we're going to just have to modify it to go up to the 1.6. The exhaust comes out on the 1.6 in a little different position than the 1.3 does. So we got to do a little exhaust work. So that's the first thing I feel like doing this morning. So let's get after it. Okay guys, so here's what I come up with. Here's the 1.6 flange, and here's my original exhaust pipe. And I did a series of basically pie cuts at different angles to get it to bend and match up to this pipe here. And it isn't pretty, but once I'm done welding it, it'll be fine. So that's the next step done. Let's weld her up. Okay guys, the moment of truth. We're adding coolant. Gotta check the oil yet. Turn the key. And hopefully she fires. So I got the exhaust all modified. Everything seems to be hooked back up. I might have to adjust the exhaust a little bit more. It's kind of touching the frame, or really close to touching the frame right now. But we're gonna give it a fire up here. Anyhow, it's 9:30 Sunday night. So I'm just gonna fire it, see if it runs, and then we're going to continue tomorrow. So let's see what happens here. Woo! She lives. Runs great too. Nice. I can't wait to take this thing for a boot. So I'm just gonna check things over here as it runs, check the coolant, check the oil, check all that other good stuff, and then we'll continue this tomorrow. All right guys, the 16V is done. She's in. I took it for a little trail shakedown, and everything works great. Good oil pressure, no funky sounds, everything runs good. Good power, more power than the turbo had for sure. I can do 110 kilometers an hour on the highway at 3,500 RPM in 5th gear, except for the big hills. It still pulls you down a little bit. Still running 373 gears in it. But it runs great, nice and smooth. Idle's awesome. Real happy with it. It's got good lugging power, way better lugging power than the 1.3 with the turbo had. Hands down, way better. Start's awesome. I can't wait to use this thing in winter. And it'll start when I want it to. So I just want to show you a few things. This red light here is my check engine light. I put an oil pressure gauge in it to make sure. I'm going to show you here where the ECM went. It's underneath the dash. There you can see the ECM there where I mounted underneath the dash. Built a little bracket. So it's nice and tucked up and out of the way. Only stuff I really had to manufacture was the motor mounts. And I had to move the electric fan up a little higher on the rad. It wanted to touch the old water pump bolts there. And I'll be building a air box for this air cleaner. And then it'll be a nice tucked away aluminum air box. Power steering down in there just clears the filter. You can get the filter out for an oil change, just barely, but it clears. So I realized I didn't video a whole lot of me doing the actual work. That's because there was a ton of stuff to do. It was really involved, and for me to show all that stuff, the video would have been an hour and a half long. So I basically did my work, and then I went and I showed you everything I did, explained it, and that's going to be the video. I'm sorry if I didn't show much more. If you guys want to see some specifics on it, leave some comments below, and I'll take and shoot a little video, a little walk around video sort of thing, a little closer up, and we'll go from there. So next up is going to be the air box for the 16V. I also have a hybrid rear diff planned to do. I got a jig over there that my buddy John made, and we're going to try and make ourselves a hybrid tracker samurai rear diff. And there's a few other things in the plans. So if you guys are liking this content, go ahead, subscribe, share, like, hit the bell to be notified, give me a thumbs up, and we'll catch you guys next Friday.